Hey guys, so welcome to the final day of our Bear Penguin game. It's looking pretty good right now. We have our character select screen where we get to pick our color. We have the penguins moving around randomly. We have a couple things that we can collect to increase the timer. And then we also have a power up that we can click on to increase the bear's speed. We have a negative timer pumpkin one that we can get, and then increase the time. We can keep chasing this one down, and then when the game ends, the timer goes away and it presents us our score. So that's where we're at right now. What we're gonna do is at this point add in some sound effects and music, and then also add this restart function. Right now we have to hit the restart button, which is fine, but I'm going to show you guys how you would do this in an actual application. You actually have to reset some variables. You don't really want the user to have to hit a button to restart. Like, you don't want to have them to shut down the program and open it back up again. You would like that functionality to be in the program. So for example, let's say you're programming a tic-tac-toe game, right? You wouldn't really want the user to have to close the app on their phone in order to start a new game and then reopen the app. That wouldn't really make sense. So we would want a functionality inside of there that says, click this button for new game, and then it would do that. So we're gonna do that as well. And then that's it. That'll be it for what I have to show you in Alice, and then we'll move from there. So I think what I want to start with today is the reset function. And it's actually pretty straightforward. All we can do is in the game over, whenever game over happens, which is when the time runs out here, and we get to this loop here, we have this final thing display. And then what we want to do at that point is basically wait for the user to hit the R key. So we're going to have a key press for this. So I'm going to add event listener, add key press listener, and I'm going to put it up next to these other ones. The order doesn't really matter, but so this key press listener is only going to be listening for the R key. So we'll add an if statement in there. And this will only be true if time is up. So if this value is set to there, then this value gets set to true. And so if the time is up, then we'll listen for them to push a key. So we'll say and true is key the letter R. And then if that's the case, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to call my first method again. And so what that's going to do is that's going to go back here and it's going to respawn the values. It's going to go back to the character select screen. So we may want to change this a little bit, but it's going to basically restart the game now. There's going to be a couple things that we need to do though here in order to set up the game, such as restarting some of the variables. Because right now, we can do this, right? And you can see I'm just going to hit some pumpkins here, so I lose my time pretty quick here. So I run out of time here, right? And my score is there. If I press R here, you can see it went back to the character screen and asked me to select, but because I made those objects opaque before, they're still there. Because I didn't change this, it's gone. So I can select here, but then immediately it's going to go back to this because the time wasn't reset, right? So I've got to reset my variables. So it sort of works, but there's some work to be done with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function for this in scene, and I'm just going to call this setup. And so this function is just going to reset all of our variables. So just to remind you guys, we had a variable called time remaining, we had a variable called score, we had a game started, and we had a time up. And we want to basically reset all these variables back to their original values. So in here, we're just going to go through and we're going to set the score to 0. We're going to set the time remaining back to whatever it was to begin with. 25, I believe, is what we have. 25. We're going to set game started to false, and we are going to set time up to false as well. And so now it'll kind of reset. We can call setup and all those things happen. So let's see. Where do we have to call setup then? So we have to call setup from here, so that when my first method is called, setup is called. But I don't want to do it there. I'm actually going to call it here, from here, right after we right at the beginning here of my first method. So I could actually put some of this other stuff into setup to make it a little bit cleaner. So for example, these 3, like spawning them, is going to, I'm going to want to reset all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put all this stuff in a do in order, everything that is working to set up my game before the character select. I'm going to put into a function here. And then what I'm going to do is, let's see, do I need to unset the camera vehicle? The bear shouldn't be moving, so that should be fine. The score text, yeah, okay. We may need to unset these vehicles, but we'll see what this looks like. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to move this all into my setup function. And I'm just going to pull it out here. And I get rid of that. All right, so just moving some code over here. So at the beginning when I call setup, it's going to set the score. Now, here's the problem is the bear is going to be in a different location and the penguins are going to be all over the place. So what we can kind of do is have the penguins, have a starting location, or kind of maybe do even the same function of spawn range distance, something like that. But what I'm really concerned about is this bear's positioning. I want the bear to start in the same positioning each time. That's the biggest thing, because the rest of the stuff we can make spawn relative to the bear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys object markers, and I think we talked about these before, but it's maybe been a while. So an object marker is like a camera marker, in that it marks the location of something that's invisible. You can't see it in terms of when the game is played, but it's going to stay there, and we're going to be able to interact with it in terms of like moving the bear to this position. So from its initial position, I'm going to say bear starting position. I'm going to add one and mark it there. And so now I have this marker here, and that's all I need to do. I just need to add it in there. And now when I go to my code, I can say setup bear move and orient to, and I'm going to do this before I spawn other stuff, move and orient to bear starting position, and I'll set the duration of this to 0. All right, and so the bear will reset to his original position, and then it'll spawn these objects at random locations relative to them. We'll set the timer text back up. One thing I think we need to do is update the score as well. I think the score will, I'm pretty sure the score will hang over. So let's just go ahead and collect a couple things, get a few points. I don't know why. Sometimes the Coke bottle is weird and won't let me click on it. All right, so I'm going to run out of time here with a score of 1, and let's see what it does. Okay, so it says game over, your final score is 1, and I press R to restart. All right, now I can select my character again. Let's see if it switches back. And it did, but you can see that my score was still 1. But when I roar, now my score is still 1, and now it goes to to 2 to 3. All right. So what was happening there was it wasn't updating the text. The actual score reset, but the text did not. And so you can see my timer goes down. It updates the score here. I can press R to restart, select my character again, and it's running again. But it still says I have a score of 6, and it won't say update that score until I actually hit my first object. And so all we need to do is make a call to our update score function after we set the score back to 0. That should take care of that. And so, it looks pretty good now. We can have our score. If we hit a pumpkin, those go away. One thing you're going to see here, though, this penguins, we're not resetting the speed of the penguins, right? So I'm going to chase this one down a bunch and let the game end. All right, so I think it's that far one. All right, and then when I restart it, let's see, where was that? I think it was maybe this one. Oh, not close enough. Okay, not that one. Well, I picked the wrong one. Try again. Maybe it's this one. One of them I've already scared quite a few times. Yeah, I think it's that one. So he is already, even though this is a new game, he is already flying around the board. And I think he's zoomed off into the distance here. Now, we also want to get rid of this billboard here. We don't want that to show up. So when we're actually playing the game, we need the bears to pop up. So we got to do a few things with the opacities of things and reset the penguins. And so you're just resetting variables and things like that. All right, so let's go ahead and on our setup, let's set the billboard game over screen. Let's set its opacity to 0 with a duration of 0. What else? We need to set the opacity of the game over final score text to 0. We need to set the opacity of the brown bear, so bear 2 and 3, we need to set that back up to 1 so we can see them when we're selecting again. And so that's just our setup variables. And then to reset the penguin back to their initial fields here, move time and move distance, we actually need to reset all of their move time and move distances to 2 and 3. And so here we want to actually get the penguin array. Let me see here if for each in together we can do this. Gallery class flyer penguins for penguin and penguin, just like we did before. Let's go ahead and set move time to 2. That's what it was, 2, and set move distance to 3. And that will reset now, so they actually go back. And we should also set the bear's speed back up as well. Oops, not bear, but quadruped. Its property, its speed was 2, and so let's also set the bear's speed back to 2 as our initial value. So this is just resetting all the initial variables back to their initial values so that each game is unique in itself. So let's run that, make sure things look good. We're a little bit faster now. Get more time. Maybe I'll accidentally hit a pumpkin. Oh no, gotta get more time. All right, now I'm faster. Let's see if I can get to this last clock. So the clocks are spawning further from me each time, which is good. So I can't just completely infinitely keep getting power-ups. Ooh. All right, and I ran out of time now. All right, so my final score is 14. I press R to restart. This is one thing that I see. So the score is showing up here. I don't mind that. Maybe we should actually put that from the get-go. But that would be unsetting the vehicle and then resetting the vehicle. So I'm actually not sure why. Oh yeah, I know. Okay, I know why. Our score is starting at 1, but you can see my bear speed reset, the penguins all reset, everything looks good. The only issue right now is that in the update score function, we always add 1 to it. So let's actually set the score here to -1. So that when we update it the first time, it gets set to 0, and then it's all good. All right. So this is pretty much it for the game. Now we're just going to add in some sound effects. So it's very easy to add audio in. There's under any object you can say play audio and then pick an audio source. So you guys can feel free to get your own sound effect library for this. There is a library built into Alice. It's not very big, but they have some free sound effects that we're going to use today. So the first thing we're going to add in is like a background music for the game. So I'm going to actually add this with my first method here on scene activated. I'm going to do this together. Now, music has to run on its own thread. So it's a little bit hard sometimes to get it to work the way you want it to. But here, if we do a do together, it's going to run my first method, which is like everything else. And then it's going to play the audio. And the audio source I'm going to pick is I'm going to hit import audio. And you can look through this sound gallery that is in our Alice application. I'm going to use background music, and I'm just going to pick the action. You guys can listen to some of these. They're okay, but you can always get your own as well. You can input any MP3 file. So you can mix these, so you can customize the audio source. You can turn down the volume a little bit or turn the volume up a little bit. You can trim it so that it starts or stops at a certain point. So here I'm listening to it, and so maybe it's a little bit loud, so maybe we'll just turn it down a little bit, mix it. We want all the sound effects to kind of mix together well. So I'm going to go about 60% volume there. All right, and so now when I run it, it's going to play that sound in the background. And it's just going to keep going as the game plays. All right, now what I can do is I can actually put this in a loop in itself. Since this is my game music, I just want this to loop forever. Now it's 79 seconds, so after it hits 80 seconds, it will loop. Just to show you what this would sound like if I customize this audio source to just maybe play for like 5 seconds or so. You heard it loop there. So that's what it's doing there. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. All right, so if you want to take some time and add some sound effects in, play with that a little bit. I'm going to add in a sound effect for the bear roar, the penguin being scared, the power-up being collected, the pumpkin being hit, and then game over when time is up. All right. So if you want to pause the video and take some time and try and implement some of those, go for it, and then we'll kind of, I'm going to go through it here. So the first thing I'm going to add in is the bear roar, which is going to happen inside the roar function. I think that makes the most sense. So when the user roars, it calls this function here. And since I already have a do together with the say roar, this actually makes it very easy for me to just say, let's play audio and let's import audio here. And here I'm going to use the sound effect. And again, you can pick which one you want, but I'm going to use the sound effect beast, and I'm going to use one of these growls. All right. And again, if we go into customize audio source, we can test it. And then set its volume to whatever to mix it with the other ones. Okay. And so now when I run it, music starts. That sound effects when I roar. Right. Now we're going to add in a little effect for the penguins. So when the penguins are running away in here, let's maybe also add in a little sound effect for them. One thing to note here, I want to make sure that this audio for the beast growl, it's 1.51 seconds. So I just want to make sure that finishes before the rest of this function. Otherwise, so the time of my roar here is, let's see, what did we make it? I think we made it like 2 seconds. Yeah. So the bear is going to roar for 2 seconds. So as long as this is under 2 seconds, then it's fine. And it is. It's only starting at 0 and going to 0.679. I guess I customized this more than I wanted to. Okay. So if that is longer than the time though, then it's going to have to wait for this for you to be able to move and stuff like that before this is roaring as it's false. So you just have to watch that with the sound effects. Make sure the time isn't more than that. The same goes for the penguins here. So the penguins running away, this is a kind of a tricky thing here because the speed of the runaway is going to continue to get faster as we decrease the move time. So we want to keep this sound effect happening like in kind of a different thread, if you will, which is maybe a little bit tricky. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it with this or not, but we'll just have to keep track of that. So all this stuff is happening. What we want to do is maybe add in a do together with the runaway. So the runaway is happening while a sound effect is happening. And we're going to play audio here. I'm going to pick the sound effect for footsteps. And I'm just going to do this soft loop. Now, the thing about this is this clip is 5 seconds long. All right, we don't need it to be 5 seconds. The penguin's not going to be running for that long. So I want to cut this off at some point. But where do I cut this off? I actually want to cut this off at the penguin's stop time, which I don't know if I can actually do that or not. We might have to adjust this. Let's see. So we'll grab the penguin function, get move time. Yep, we'll do it that way. So we'll start it at 0 and we'll stop it at the given move time of the penguin. So if the penguin's move time is 1 second, then we'll stop it after 1 second, whatever this runaway duration is going to take. And so that way, the sound effects will start. And we can go over here, we can scare. And they run away, and then it stops and they keep moving. So it's a little bit silly, but it works. All right, let's see what else. Let's do something that happens when a power-up's collected. So over in here, we had our collisions. So whenever the user collected a clock, we had this happen. So let's just actually have it add the time, and then before we'll spawn it at a random location. Let's see. Yeah, let's do it right in here. Sorry, before we do that, let's do together with a do in order. So we're going to put the 3 previous things in a do in order. And we're going to do this together with a new sound effect. And we're just going to grab a, let's see, this is for the clock. Maybe since it's a power up, maybe we'll have like the beast, the bear, like increase in power. So he'll do like a little snort or something like that. This is a pretty short one. Make sure that it's pretty short here. Okay, so we'll just have him powered up there, and then we'll do the same thing with when the user clicks on the bottle here. So we'll set its opacity to 0, set the speed up, update the score, and spawn the random location. So when we're doing that, we can add in the sound effect as well in here. Maybe we'll do a different one for that. So customize this. And we can see how that looks. This is probably too small. I don't know why that went to 0.05. Probably like there should be good. Alright, so we hit a power up. We get more time each time the bear snorts. Alright, still something happens with nothing's happening with the pumpkin, so that's the only one. I want to add a little bit of to the mouse click one. I want to change this and make this just display the full thing. I think that sounds a little bit better. But you can kind of play around with this, mix and match them a little bit. And the last thing is the pumpkin one. So when the pumpkins hits the bear and we lose time, let's maybe add one more audio source. And I'm going to do for this one crunching, like we accidentally stepped on the pumpkin. So maybe this sound effect here. All right. Let's see how that sounds. Now, okay, the crunching sound effect is very, very long. And so that's why it took so long for that thing to respawn. So that was the thing that I was talking about earlier. So we definitely want to pick a different one for this. Let's see. Crunching. Let's do, actually, okay, so I think bite is the one that I wanted. So let's test it, see what it sounds like. Yeah, so it's just like, yeah, it's all right. And then we can also set the opacity of the pumpkin to 0 so that it actually goes away for just a brief second. While the sound effect is playing, because our function to spawn at a random location does set the opacity to 0, but well, actually, no, I scratched that. Don't do that. The function already does it. So let's just do these together. So play audio at the same time, spawn the random location. So now when we glide with the pumpkin, time's up. So the last thing we're gonna add in is a game over sound effect, which will happen when time is up. So when time goes to 0 and game over is played, we will actually play audio, and we'll just do one of the bells. All right. Now, again, you got to make sure that you do these together with everything else, because audio has to be in its own like track here. So add it in here. Boom, 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 boom. Now, when I get to 0 time, I think I moved before the camera was positioned, so that might be a bug. All right, so the timer went off. I'm getting some sound effects here. Penguin's running away. And then the bell goes off. All right, and then I don't have to hit restart. I can just press R, and it restarts automatically. So it's, you know, it's got a lot of cool features in here. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this project, and I hope you guys did too. What you're gonna start next week on Monday is kind of a final project for this unit on Alice, and so I'm gonna want you guys to think of, a type of game that maybe it's a remaking an older game that you've played before, or maybe it's kind of coming up with something on your own. But it's gonna follow kind of the guidelines that we had set up in this video, and that we've done together with this little program. So we've done all the basic features of designing a game's the game mechanics, and I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to do a project where you get to practice some of those. So things to think about in the project are going to obviously be what kind of animations you're going to have, what kind of player controls are you going to have. What's the objective of the game? Is it to collect objects? Is it to interact with some other object via the keys you press or the mouse clicks? What's your UI going to look like? So in our case, we just have these two little text objects for a score and a timer, but do you want something else in there? How are you gonna make the game more difficult as it goes? So like we have this concept that as we scare the penguins more and more, they get faster. So that it increases the difficulty of the game. But at the same time, the bear can, become faster himself. The bear can collect more time, but there's also this detrimental, bad power up there. You can see my dog in the background there. Lucy, say hi. Say hi. Say hi. So yeah, so I think that I'm excited to see what you guys kind of do with this, and this will probably work on this for about a week or two, and then we'll get into Java after that. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will talk to you on Monday.